Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel for the second video of the day. If you didn't see earlier on, I posted my reacting to my Premier League predictions for the season just gone video. You should go and check it out. It's a long one. If you just want a little bit of extra injection of GBFC, then that should satisfy the palate. Before we get into anything though, I know I say it in every video, but I need to remind you guys, GBFC selects £1,000 to be won for the game against Manchester City in the Champions League final. Link in the description, 18 plus, terms and conditions to apply. If I can get the flipping words out, it's my free to play game. You guys should go get involved if you can. We got a second video because there has been some talks that are beginning to advance slightly within the Chelsea Twitter sphere, but it's been reported by somebody who I respect very greatly in the Chelsea journalism scene, Mr. Simon Phillips. If you don't follow this guy, I will leave a link to his Twitter account in the description. He's a good man. I was on a podcast with him and Dan McCarthy not too long ago, thoroughly enjoyed myself, and he has said that with Jadon Sancho and Borussia Dortmund being willing to listen to offers for the man this summer, it would make a lot of sense if Chelsea were to reinvigorate their interest that Callum Hudson-Odoi would be a very natural replacement not only for Dortmund, but if Callum Hudson-Odoi is a bit worried about his playing time at Chelsea, he's 20 years old right now. Under Thomas Tuchel, we've seen him used sporadically, or sparingly is probably the better word to use. So for that reason, with Cho having flirted with a move to Bayern Munich in the past, a Bundesliga move for Callum Hudson-Odoi wouldn't be the worst option for the player. And if Dortmund are in fact to lose Sancho, whether it is to Chelsea, United or any other suitors, Callum Hudson-Odoi would be a very natural replacement if Jadon Sancho were in fact to leave. I want to come up with some kind of conclusive answer, which I know a lot of people might either be happy about or not so happy about, but this is big news, and I wanted to kind of look at both Jadon Sancho and Callum Hudson-Odoi and slightly entertain the concept or the idea of the players swapping clubs. Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chelsea Academy boy, leaves to go to Borussia Dortmund, and Chelsea get Jadon Sancho, lifelong Chelsea fan, at Chelsea Football Club. He's a player, Jadon Sancho, who I have always wanted to see at Chelsea. There are many different reasons for this. I do believe that Jadon Sancho is one of the most, if not the most exciting young winger in Europe. Obviously, people always say, like, just because he's English, you want him a bit more. I'm also an England fan. When England play in the Euros, I want them to win the bloody thing the same way that I want Chelsea to win the Champions League. Although, in terms of the whole, who do I want to win what thing more, I'd rather Chelsea won the Champions League. We'll wait for England to do their business in the World Cup if I had to make that decision, which some people always ask that question. It's a little bit bloody daft. I've always wanted Jadon Sancho at Chelsea. And I think that when Chelsea sign big players, there is always a little thought in my mind and a bit of a worry that these big players that come in for big money, with big expectations, with giant wages, and when they're young, I do sometimes worry that Chelsea might, for some, be seen as a stepping stone club to the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona in the future, who, you know, Real Madrid have always been known as being a young footballer's childhood dream to play for them. It was the same with Hazard, you know. But the good thing about Hazard is he was always incredibly dedicated to Chelsea, and he made it absolutely no, secret that he was always, as a kid, dreaming of a move to Real Madrid. So when Chelsea bring in a player, and let's in this case talk about Jadon Sancho, he is a player who supported Chelsea when he was a youngster. So for that reason, I feel as though Sancho would immediately come in, feel at home, be happy and proud to be wearing the blue shirt of Chelsea, which is one of my own personal sentimental worries that I have with new signings that is kind of box ticked in my opinion. However, we're here to discuss both the players and try and figure out a reason or a conclusion as to whether or not Jadon Sancho for Callum Hudson-Odoi is in fact a good deal for Chelsea Football Club. So, we will take a little start by having a little ganders at both players' statistics this season. I think we can all agree, if we bring it first of all back in the build-up to this season, who has shone the most in their career. and who has been more of a breakthrough in both their respective clubs and also for England too. And I think that there isn't much doubt in terms of the stats, the numbers and the public perception that Jadon Sancho has had a more fruitful, bright, straight into the flipping deep end start to the career than Callum Hudson-Odoi has. Callum Hudson-Odoi, having gone through many different managers at Chelsea, we've seen sparks of brilliance. We have seen him come on and change matches in big games, such as FA Cup semi-final, Man City. He came on and made a world of difference to Chelsea. But at the same time, for whatever reason, particularly both Lampard and Thomas Tuchel have not been confident enough to continue starting with Callum Hudson-Odoi. Now, if we use Jadon Sancho as the comparison of this, yes, Sancho's played a lot more football, but there's also not as many options at Borussia Dortmund in attacking positions as there is at Chelsea. So we have to really factor that in, that even though Callum Hudson-Odoi has got 5 goals, 5 assists this season in all competitions, which equates to about a goal or an assist every 184 minutes, which is definitely a number that I expect to rise if he's given consistent playing time at Chelsea, which is something that we've not seen because he's in the team, out the team, in the team, out the team, for whatever reason it may be. So it is very difficult, based off of numerical data, to actually fairly compare the quality and potential of player between both Callum Hudson-Odoi and Jadon Sancho. However, in football, everything is measured off of these numerical figures, such as goals and assists. Jadon Sancho, this season alone for Borussia Dortmund, 16 goals, and I think it's 21 assists in about 2,900 odd minutes this season, which equates to a goal contribution once every 80 minutes, which is actually an incredible stat for a player who is only 21 years old, playing in a big team, in a very difficult league. We know obviously the Bundesliga converting to the Premier League isn't always something that works because Timo Werner this season, absolute goal machine in RB Leipzig, comes to Chelsea, and we all know that even though he's contributed to a lot of goals this season, considering the big chances he's had, he's seriously struggled. Same with Kai Havertz, although there's different factors that have hindered Kai Havertz's potential to actually reach his ability this season in a Chelsea shirt. That's by the by. But Jadon Sancho's stats are absolutely phenomenal. And when I watch Sancho play, I think the key difference at the moment between why Sancho is up here right now and Hudson-Odoi is here, I think the ceiling is off the camera for both of them personally. But I think the one element of Sancho's game that Callum Hudson-Odoi also has, but doesn't use on a consistent or frequent enough basis, regardless of the minutes available, is the absolute fearlessness to take on players. It's been a theme of Chelsea, not just this season and not just with Callum, but with a lot of our wingers over the course of the last few years. We very rarely see them just try and burn past players. We never see them trying little flip-flaps, little this, little that, like Eden Hazard would do. That was the difference. Hazard had that confidence to try something on his own. What I see with Callum that we don't see with Sancho, because he does try and take players on, he does drive forward and always looks to be progressing the ball at speed. With Callum, one of my biggest qualms is that he has this ability, and when he does it, he's incredibly successful with it. He can put in a wonderful cross of the ball. He loves to receive it in the final third and get in and around the box. But too often, I see him one-on-one with a defender or in positions where he can actually do something more progressive, but in typical Chelsea style, it goes backwards, or he plays more of a safer pass and doesn't really try and express that incredibly expressive ability that he has on the ball. So for that reason, we can conclude in an essence that although Jadon Sancho is slightly older than Callum Hudson-Odoi, we can conclude at the moment that in terms of who is fulfilling that incredibly high potential that we know they both have, Jadon Sancho for me, not just numerically, but in terms of the confidence that I see within the player, is currently ahead of Callum Hudson-Odoi. Now, if we talk figures, Dortmund are supposedly willing to listen to offers of around 80 million euros. If you use the internet and you use Transfermarkt, it says Sancho's worth 100 mil, Hudson-Odoi's worth 35. I think Chelsea's valuation for Callum Hudson-Odoi will be something a lot higher than that. And in terms of whether or not it's a financially feasible move for Chelsea, based off of The risk that there still is with Sancho, because maybe the adaptation from Bundesliga to Premier League isn't so easy, but the fact he plays in the England national team and he's an English national and he knows the players that A, he'd be playing with at Chelsea who are also English, B, the other players that play in the Premier League, having grown up in academies here in England, I do believe that the adaptation period for Sancho would probably not take an entire season the way that it has, and we still don't really know if both Werner and Havertz are fully settled and ready to take the Premier League by storm. I think that adaptation period would be less of a risk from Jadon Sancho, but in terms of how Chelsea and Dortmund can actually bridge a gap between their financial estimations on the player, I think it would have to be still Hudson-Odoi plus a bit of cash if Chelsea are actually going to pull that transfer off. Now, the one thing I really worry about is that Callum Hudson-Odoi is often deployed on the right-hand side, where we know that he is most comfortable coming in from the left wing, which has obviously been dominated more heavily by Werner, Pulisic this season. So Hudson-Odoi, when he's given his chance, he's coming from the right. Jadon Sancho is a player who always loves to play from the right-hand side. So if Sancho was to come to Chelsea and Callum Hudson-Odoi were to stay, then those two, it looks as though, would be fighting for the same position. And with Sancho at this moment being slightly more advanced towards being more of a completer player, not complete, but more complete than Callum Hudson-Odoi, it will leave Hudson-Odoi once again struggling for minutes at the club, which, having seen him flirt with Bayern in the past when there's been temptations, I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea were to keep hold of Callum Hudson-Odoi and go for Sancho, that we see Hudson-Odoi's Chelsea career dwindle into dying embers a little bit, which is a really sad thing because I firmly believe that given a solid run of games, Callum Hudson-Odoi could be a phenomenal footballer. He's got all of the raw ability. If he can just use a bit more of that confidence that we see in small moments, but that he could still develop and still enhance, even in the small minutes that he has, I think he could be a sensational player. But at Chelsea, I haven't seen it enough, which is a controversial statement, I know, because 10 goals and assists this season in total isn't the worst for the minutes that he's had, but I do believe it could be so much better. And I think when we talk about Chelsea being reluctant in the final third, when Callum Hudson-Odoi is on the pitch, I want to see him do even more because he can. I know he does it well enough, and we've seen brilliant sparks when Callum's played, but it isn't enough. So in order for me to wrap up this video, do I think that Chelsea swapping Jadon Sancho for Callum Hudson-Odoi is a good deal for Chelsea Football Club? At the moment, based off of what the players can offer on the pitch, I do believe it could be, but it is all dependent on whether the gap in what Chelsea pay and get the player is for giving them Hudson-Odoi. I don't want us to be spending too much money and also giving them Callum Hudson-Odoi, because I do believe that given the right coaching and the right time, Callum Hudson-Odoi will become a top player for whatever club he's at and also for England. So it is a bloody difficult one, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it in the comments down below, because I do believe now, obviously with the Champions League happening this weekend, if Chelsea win it, as Fabrizio Romano said here on the GBFC channel, Chelsea will be looking to spend more money because they can. So maybe there's a way that we keep Callum and we also get Jadon Sancho. It's a possibility, but in terms of talking about the probability of Chelsea actually attaining Jadon Sancho's signature, Callum Hudson-Odoi going the other way does make a lot of logical sense. But anyway, I'm going to leave this one with you guys. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about it? Two phenomenally talented young English players. I don't want to see Callum go. If I had my way, I'd have them both at the club. I know it's so hard because you've already got so many attacking players to choose from, but sometimes you've got to be selfish, and I would love to see them both here. But it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you all tomorrow, maybe with another double upload, maybe not, we'll see. But yeah, catch you in a bit. Come on, you Blues, forgot to say it.